Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode 633 or something like that to that degree. I've no idea what time it is or what day. I didn't even know it was Friday. So bear with me today. This is going to be amazing. To your left, as always, you have Dan. And to your right, as well, sometimes lately, you have Jamie. And me, as always, I'm the one and only Uncle Chanton. Thank God for that. How are you, boys? Fantastic. You feel like I am?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Victoria's in a
stretch.
Victoria's in a lockdown, so back to the old gaming situation that we're all used to. But yeah, moving house and stuff, so busy. So yeah, what we've been playing for me won't be a lot this week.
That's fair. Jamie hanging in there. Been the
Yep. Try not to let my my tired eyes show.
yeah.
Nah, I'm all right. I'm good. I've had a positive week. Sun's shining here now. Summertime's coming, so can't complain too much, to be honest. What about you?
I'm
Have you
just,
been?
man, I'm grateful it's the weekend in a matter of hours. I'm pretty over this week, to be honest, but we've got some good news to talk about, some exciting things, which I'm excited to talk about myself, but we'll get into that. But first off, as we always do, what have we been playing? Dan, you said it's not going to be much for you this week, so we'll start with you. What have you been doing or not been doing?
Yeah, so pretty much an hour ago, I just got off playing 2K for about an hour. So that's what we've been playing. I literally haven't been able to play anything this week at all,
Nice.
except for actual. Before the lockdown happened, I actually played actual basketball on Wednesday. That's the only game that I've been able to play. So we'll move on from me.
Lovely. Fantastic. Jamie, anything?
Not in the week. Last weekend after we spoke, I did the Scarlet Nexus demo, which was pretty cool. Quite interesting. I think it's it's hard to describe because it's almost got that kind of Persona-y vibe to it, but it plays like a newer Final Fantasy game, with a bit of Dragon Ball mixed in. There's some like anime ultimate kind of things, which is why I said to you might dig it and give the demo a try. Not something I'm going to lay down any cash on, but yeah, it was a fun ride. I can see, given the deal that they made with Microsoft around the market and stuff, it'll not be too long before it hits Game Pass, but it'd be next 6 months or so, I'd imagine. But that was a fun experience. And then other than that, yeah, absolutely, pretty much nothing. Played a little bit of Destiny. Just getting some season levels because I'm way behind for the first time ever in my season pass. I've usually just cranked out to 100 and then I leave and dip out, as you'd have heard for the last few seasons. It's like, I go in, get my fill, and then I'm done for the next 2 months or whatever. But I'm super far behind, because life. I haven't really had the time to do so. So getting into that a tiny little bit, but that is pretty much me. What about you, man?
Oh man, just an absolute shitload of Monster Hunter World. Yeah, I'm going back to 2016, whenever that game came out. I'm really enjoying it, as I've shared my progress with you guys during the week. I didn't get it, Jamie, as you know. I didn't get it back when you tried to get me in it, and I was like, yeah, I'm not getting it. And the online is still shit. Like the way you join together or create a squad, and you can't join every mission. You can't join most of the hunts. You can't, until you finally get, to the end game stuff, whatever, or high rank Monster Hunter quests and shit. It's a frustrating experience. It's really not simple. And last night just didn't work at all. Sarah and I tried to play, and we kept getting this error message. And I checked online, and everybody's like, "Yep, this is a common thing that Monster Hunter does when you're trying to squad up, and there's no resolution for it. It just goes away sometimes." So we didn't get to play anything, any Monster Hunter last night. But yeah, that's literally. Then we jumped on Elder Scrolls Online. It's hard bouncing between games like those. Like they're vastly different experiences. So you get into the one mode for one, and then you jump into another one. It's like, oh, where am I? What am I doing here? But that's a good game too. But that's pretty much it, man. I haven't been playing much of as I used to be. Monster Hunter, I think I've clocked in like 20 something hours. in that game already this week.
Have you got to the end of the campaign yet? Because I know when me and you did it, I think we got you through maybe the second biome.
Yeah, I think so.
You,
I'm only.
obviously.
I'm just. Well, I think you said I'm just past halfway. Like where you turn that big Zaroff creature, whatever his name is, away from destroying this bay cavern area, whatever, and all the monsters start appearing in places they shouldn't be because there's a disparaged or what's the word they used in the thing? Oh, the world's just, because you change the tide or something with the big beast, all the monsters are going stupid and there's higher rank monsters flying around, and you gotta go to every level, every map, and track down Rathian footsteps or something, to find out why they're in every biome, whatever. So that's where I'm up to at the moment.
About 2/3, I think.
Oh, nice, cool. Yeah, it feels like it. Feels like I'm pretty far in, but yeah. Otherwise, it's pretty cool, man. I've actually been finding myself playing it on my own without someone, so that's a testament to the game for me, anyway. Anyway, speaking of games and things like that, we've got some game news to talk about, obviously, because this is what that show is that we do. So I'm going to talk about my hero just briefly, my gaming hero and the icon that everyone needs, Phil Spencer. Praise. So Phil Spencer said some interesting comments this week. For those of you who aren't familiar, kind of funny, Gamescast got him on finally. Got him on the show. I'm surprised I got him on Gamecast and not Xcast, but whatever. I thought that was a bit sly, but I guess if you're gonna have Phil Spencer come on your show, you're gonna have him on your main one. Anyway, so he comes on and starts making some interesting comments about controllers, which he's not shied away from previously, where he made comments in the past where he's like, yeah, look, everybody shares their own. Like, we all know what we're all doing. And when he says that, he's talking about, Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo. Like, they all know what they're doing because they all know each other and they all visit each other's offices and stuff. And he's like, yeah, we saw DualSense controllers before they came out and we found that very interesting. So they ask him again on, like, what is going on, like, with the hardware from Microsoft, what they're doing, his comments on the DualSense that came out, where he complimented the DualSense controller, suggesting that it might inspire Microsoft to add more features to its own controller. So that piqued my interest this week, just to start off with, because we all know the controller that we have now for the series consoles is basically ergonomically improved from the Xbox One controller. It's shaped differently, like literally and physically, but it hasn't really broken the mold like the DualSense has. So I haven't experienced the DualSense. You two obviously have. So I'm going to be taking some lead from you guys on this one for comments. But his other comments for HR, God, get out of work mode. VR headsets also was a comment on here that I might touch on. But I just want to, before I go into a quote on this, like, what do you think of that? Like, we know the Xbox controller hasn't changed. I just love it how it is. Like, the new controller, it fits. I'm used to it now. It was a bit of an adjustment for me, but I think it's probably the best Xbox controller they've made so far. Just shy of that giant Duke back in the day, which is still the best in my book. So you guys have experienced both sides. I haven't. So what do you like? If Xbox did changes, what do you think that would be? Like, when he's talking about the DualSense here, is it just going to be the haptic triggers or gyro stuff in it, or touch pads? Where do you see these comments going? Dan, I'll start with you because you're the Sony man.
Thanks, John.
All right.
Yeah, I think they will. I think there was a lot of talk about it when Microsoft brought their Rumble into the triggers last gen, and then they found out that it wasn't a lot of people taking advantage of it, and so these companies will always react to another. So I think when not a lot of people were using that, therefore Sony didn't even look into it. And I think there's just been a lot of third parties being able to access the triggers as well as the rumble in the controller. Like, a lot of them have been using it more than maybe Xbox thought people would. And now that third parties are jumping onto it, they can go, okay, well, maybe we can start adding things into our controller. That's pretty much where I landed on it. Like this will happen if something is popular enough, the other company will just work their way into it. The Rumble makes sense to me. Considering the Rumble that was used in controllers is almost 40 years old at this point. What we've had, it's the same thing that when you go to a bistro or go to like a restaurant and you get the little your number gets sent out when you order something. Like, it's the same technology, and considering that games, like, it's always pushing 4K, 60 frames, 120 frames, all this, and it's like, oh, but we have a 40-year-old Rumble in our controllers. So I feel like it's kind of a natural progression, and it's kind of good to see that. So it wouldn't surprise me, but they won't do anything that will fundamentally change the way you play the games either. Like, they won't ever do like the touchpad that is in the middle of the controller. But in terms of applying things like haptic feedback and the adaptive triggers and stuff, I can see them adding stuff like that. The same thing with the share button that was on the PlayStation 4 controller. We move on to the next generation, and there's an instant download button on the new controllers, which makes sense because you could already do that. You just had to press 2 buttons before. Now you just press 1. So I think it's just a natural progression. Like, it's not crazy, but it's good to hear, because that means there's going to be more of this like adaptive trigger, different type of rumbles in games, which does really feel awesome when it's applied well.
Yeah, I can't wait to actually sample the PS5 one myself. But before I go to Jamie there, the quote from Phil on this is he's saying, we're definitely thinking about different kinds of devices that can bring more games to more places. There's probably some work that we'll do on the controller. I think Sony's done a nice job with their controller, and we kind of look at some of that and think there are things that we should go do. But we're probably not in the more bespoke accessories place right now, he added. We just look at what happens on Windows and other places and see if there's a unique opportunity for us. Right now, I don't think there's anything that's obvious to me. So, they put out a customer survey from Microsoft about asking about the Series S and X controllers and see if they'd like to have any PlayStation features made available for that. And that's where all this kind of conversation came through. I don't have the results on that poll anyway, but Jamie, you bounce between worlds. What are your thoughts?
I enjoy the haptic stuff that the PlayStation controller does, but what I can't see Microsoft sticking it in there. They're just bog standard controllers. I think if they build out this haptic thing, it's going to be the next iteration of the Elite controller. And then maybe when we see a hardware refresh in a few years, they start packing in a haptic ready controller into the Series S and X, whatever their successors will be. It does add something, and I think that Phil Spencer's probably mindful of that because he'll have experienced it. Do you know what I mean? He'll have picked that up and gone, yeah, we're missing a trick here. This is another layer of immersion. So, excuse me. I think they'll build it in. I can see why he wants to. I still prefer the Elite controller. I still think it's a better experience. Like actually, holding it and having just that, the weight, the heft, the way that it feels to use is still so much better than the DualSense. But you cannot argue with the layer of immersion. And I know you touched on some of the comments you made around hardware and not looking at VR and stuff like that. And it's right. Like that's kind of hardware that there's not a space for them to kind of elevate themselves and their brand or their product. Whereas I feel like the haptic stuff is just pushing the industry forward. As Dan said, it's currently really outdated technology. Sony have done something to change it, albeit they've just implemented what Nintendo did and beefed it up and put the hairpin. I don't think they'll do the hairpin trigger thing, the resistance in the triggers. I don't think they'll do that. I think it'll just be the haptics because their current sliding scale of triggers on the Elite controller works perfectly fine. And I do think that resistance thing is what's breaking a lot of dual sensors as well. I know we're seeing stick drift problems as most controllers on the planet get stick drift just by nature of the way they're made. But the thing that they need to fix on that is the the resistance triggers. People are breaking them. They're not lasting very long. It's not that the haptics fail, it's more that the triggers are failing. So I don't think they'd improve on it. Do you know what I mean? They're not just going to straight copy it. They'll maybe figure out a way to make that work and have higher quality parts, which is again why I think it'd be in the Elite controller. If you look at any teardowns of the DualSense, that resistance trigger is plastic.
Yeah.
And if you're putting force on plastic, it's eventually going to break, right? It's a spring and a piece of plastic, so it's only going to have certain durability. But yeah, be keen to see it. It'd be a reason to upgrade if they give me an Elite controller with a haptic engine and some kind of funky triggers. I think they maybe just even put haptics in the triggers rather than a resistance band, to be honest. So yeah, give me it. I'd lay down on another Elite.
Oh, look, 100%. I'm pretty excited at the thought of it myself. Like, I know just from my experience with the new Xbox controller, I play games like the Medium. That's just the first one that came to mind, and that actually takes advantage of whatever the Xbox controller has, which the rumbles and the triggers. And you can feel like when you're walking around in that game, the triggers will kind of gently or more strongly vibrate in your fingers, like when things are going around you, or if you're feeling stuff, or the character's feeling stuff. And I found myself going, oh, wow, that's new. Because there's not many games really that I've played that developers took advantage of those features. And I was like, wow, that's neat. I can only imagine what it's like on the DualSense, you know? So I'm looking forward to that. But I think this might be just like backdoor way of extending our current generation we're in, because we all know how insane it is to actually get any of these consoles right now. Like, hardly anyone really has them compared to what they should have. If the world was normal. So
yeah,
it could just
we say that, but there is something stupid like, you know, between the two, there's about 20 million next gen machines out there. That's not a small number. It's not a big one, but it's still not small. Like between the Series S, X, and the PS5 digital and normal, like standard edition, there's a good 20 million units knocking around.
Yeah, but it hasn't had the smoothest of starts, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You still get people saying, I can't find these in some places in the world. But
oh yeah, you still straight up can't get any here. Like they're completely out of stock everywhere.
So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they're like, here's the new Xbox experience and here's a new controller, and you know, their first party will push it or whatever. That's kind of where I would see that happening. But they do make some comments about the VR stuff, but I couldn't really care. They just say like we can just lean on third party support if we want to go into that or not. But yeah, cool. Interesting. I thought that was just cool. Anytime Phil speaks, I'm like, I must listen. Because he speaks to me as an Xbox man. Yes.
Talk to me, senpai.
Yes. Oh, yes, senpai. I'm gonna, you know, that photo I got of him. I'm still gonna get that framed. I'm gonna print it out real big, and I'm gonna hang it on my wall one day, and just be like, "Yes, Phil."
Right behind you. There's a nice spot there. Hold on, I'll go to your one, and it's just a nice spot right behind your head there.
Yeah. Oh yes. I will make it happen. I'll get it like maybe on a canvas print or something. I don't know. But that was a good day. Anyway, so yeah, that's that done. Xbox news. Phil, you're done. Jamie, I know I changed this out at the last minute. I don't know if you saw that, but the Destiny news that we discussed earlier today, it's actually quite big news, that leak. I think that might be worth talking about, because I read most of that, and it's pretty damn huge.
Weirdly, when I opened my PC this morning, you know, I don't know if Windows does it now, but if you just shut a Mac down, turn it back on, it pops up all the windows you had open. So I've actually still got the pastebin file. It's literally open in my browser.
Oh, same.
Yeah, it's looking pretty wild. So I think it hit mainstream news that there was rumors of some kind of planned crossover event between Halo and Destiny for Bungie's, is it their 30th anniversary? The 30th anniversary of Bungie. There's going to be some some from Matter as well, and not Matter. What's their old thing called?
Marathon.
Their new Marathon. Yeah. So their new IP is the Matter, whatever they're going to call it.
Yep.
So it looks like that information has been pulled out of an even bigger leak, which now there's always big Destiny leaks between 4 and 6 weeks before they have an event. So their event will give us this is what we're planning for next year. Is their Witch Queen reveal, which is the next expansion, which should be coming September, October time, but we know it's been pushed to rumor. Well, it says Q1 officially, but this leak says it's going to be the 22nd of February next year. So cool. The leak's enormous. So just to cover off the Halo stuff, it does seem like the next season will have a lot of Halo input. Just by nature of it being an anniversary celebration, they're going to sell apparently a $20 Halo pack that's going to have all the Halo cosmetics for everything. It's apparently $75 in value. It will include armor for all of your classes. They want to get the Halo classic pistol in there, the Magnum,
Nice.
as a usable weapon. There's some other weapons like the battle rifle, etc., all supposed to be coming as well, which have been tweaked for Destiny style combat. I mean, if Master Chief is in fucking Fortnite, like it makes sense that there's some Halo like nods in Destiny, considering that Bungie make it. I'm all about that. That'll be pretty cool. But the bigger part of the leak is actually all around what's going to be happening from season 15 onwards. So, given the fact they've had to delay the game, we're expecting there will be 2 more seasons between now and the next expansion, which isn't normal for the yearly cycle. So season 15, standard new match made activities. Mara Sov's supposed to be coming back. I should forecast, if anybody actually plays Destiny and doesn't want to know any of this, just don't listen for the next 5 minutes. Like, we have the timestamp things, so Dan, make sure he's like fast forward as ahead past this, because it's if this is right, this is spoiler territory. But Mara Sov will return, and Chunt, we like Queen Mara Sov, so she can definitely come back. I've been waiting for her to come out of her weird throne world for about a year and a half.
Oh yeah.
And apparently, you know, we're going to go after Savathun next season, which the Witch Queen, everybody's assuming, is her expansion. So much going on in the Destiny world. This Pastebin file is absolutely enormous. I'm not even going to pull any tidbits out of it, because I think a lot of it is bullshit. And I think they've shot themselves in the foot right at the bottom, where they post WTF. Axis is Axor, the Archon priest. What? No, Axis was a fucking weird fallen dude that we killed in Destiny 1. And then Deej, community manager at Bungie for a number of years, Deej was asked to leave Bungie. Shithead views. It's just like, no, that's clearly bullshit. Like, someone
that doesn't sound right.
like Deej.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's tons there. You can find it on the r/raid secrets subreddit if you want to read through the whole thing. Yeah, just bear in mind, if any of it does come to fruition, you've spoiled the next 2 years of Destiny for yourself. Well, 1.5 years of Destiny for yourself. But
yeah,
tons of stuff to be happening. So yeah, it's got me quite excited. I'm in for the Halo stuff, and I'm really in for the direction of Witch Queen that we seem to be going back to, that darker kind of, you know. It's been rumored we're returning to the Dreadnought, all that kind of stuff. It's like, yes, give me Taken King vibes. I want. I mean, it was codenamed the Taken Queen internally until they told us it was then called Witch Queen. I mean, because she's not taken. So that's the Destiny nerd out. But happy, good news for anybody who plays the game.
Yeah.
And Chunt, as I said to you, some happy news for you. It looks like at some point during the next year, we're going to enter a world without power, which means there's going to be no power grind. So you can just literally jump into content.
Yes, that's what I want.
That's going to remove an element. That will remove an element of it for me, that chase. But
because you hate yourself.
I can see them making prerequisites. Yeah, but they'll just turn it into prerequisites, where it's, you've got to complete certain feats to be able to do end game content, rather than you have to grind gear to do end game content, which I think is a fairer way of looking at it. Like, you know, if you've just done something pretty fucking awesome and really difficult to do, that unlocks this next thing for you. It's how video games used to be.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you made progress based on skill, not based on an arbitrary number that you've been grinding for, you know, weeks, months, years at this point. I don't think that'll be till Lightfall, so I don't think it'll actually be next year. I think it will be the following year's expansion, because it ties in quite nicely. But yeah, Destiny's doing things. That world's only going to get bigger and better, I think. So Bungie doing all the nice and good things, but that's what's going on in the world of Destiny.
Oh man, I do say, man, that note is that's what got me most excited about all those notes in there, of the removal of the endless grind, because you know,
without power. Man.
Oh man, you know, I'm just not a fan of that. It's a deterrent for me, where I just want to jump in and play, and not have to be, you know, stonewalled out of stuff. Like, you know, so you get. Sorry, what?
No, carry on your thought.
Like, you know, when you're trying to play the campaign missions and you got to fight some stupid boss, but you can't because you get just flattened every time because you're not strong enough or whatever. And you're like, right, I just want to follow the story, but I can't because of this shithead. And I've just been like scaled out of it like immediately. Like, I was doing fine in the mission before, but now it's like, nope, You're clearly not strong enough. Go away and do all this other shit you don't want to do before you come back. And I put the controller down at that point. I'm like, no, I'm good. So if that is removed, that'll open the window for me to come back in. And I got my new TV, man. It's on its way. It's gonna look fucking beautiful on that new TV. I can't wait.
And you wound up going for the one with the full array backlight that was a bit smaller, right?
Yeah, 65 inch. It
Smart
HDMI
choice.
2.1 and all that kind of shit. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
but the big difference between that model and the one you were showing us earlier in the week that was bigger and cheaper is that it's a full array backlight. So it's HDR will be crispy. Just a final note on the Bungie stuff. So I've just found the Halo bit. So again, spoilers for anybody who's interested enough to click off. There will be a purchasable pack between season 15 and 16. Bungie want the Halo Magnum to be a part of that. The Halo and Marathon tie-ins are supposedly, take with a grain of salt, the sniper from Halo, which will be a heavy exotic item, the gravity hammer from Halo, which will be a exotic heavy item, the battle rifle from Halo, which will be a legendary item, the Magnum from Halo, which will be a legendary item.
Nice.
The Claymore from Myth is rumored. The grenade launcher from Paths and Darkness, shotgun from Marathon. All Halo weapons will have a new recoil frame, increase in hip fire and in-air accuracy, so it feels more like you're playing Halo rather than aiming down sights.
Nice.
Again, grain of salt, but that's the Halo stuff that's supposed to be rumored. And the armor for each class. Hunters will get the ODST armor. The Titans will get the Reach Spartan armor. Everybody would assume that you'd get Master Chief, but it's a bit too on the nose. I agree with that. You can't just slip Chief into the world, like it doesn't make sense. But yeah, to give him the Reach Spartan armor is slightly different. And the Warlock will get an Arbiter skin, so keen to see how that kind of plays out. So that's the Halo side rumors. As I say, I'm not going to go through the rest of it. And Dan's falling asleep over there listening to Destiny chat, so let's move through.
All I was thinking about in my head, you know how sometimes you'll be playing a game or something and you might have like Spotify or something in the background and like a song comes on and you're like, oh, this song actually really fits the game that I'm playing. Like occasionally I'll be playing Uncharted and suddenly the Pirates of the Caribbean theme comes on. I'm like, oh, this just kind of suits the whole adventure vibe. I know this is probably not what they're going to do, but it'd be really cool, like during a mission in Destiny, and you just hear the you just start hearing the music come through. That would be so cool. Like, yeah,
that'd be
anyway,
great.
Chief just what superhero lands next to you, superhero landed next to you, and you just as it just kicks off. That'd be.
I love crossovers. Crossovers are awesome. Seriously.
Yeah, I'm totally down.
We've got Halo coming this year though, so I'm sure we'll be hearing that theme.
Oh my god, yes. Oh look, I'm just going to put it here now, and it's probably going to not happen. The next acquisition by Microsoft is going to be Bungie. So moving on to the next topic, and it's going to be the Steam Deck news. Yes, Steam Deck. Now that was a massive drop. I think it's blown all the Nintendo heads around the world, but they're like, what? This is what the next Switch should have been. What? WTF, motherfuckers. So we all woke up to this, and I think I was still like half awake reading Twitter, like with one eye open, going, what the fuck is this? Like, what? This is amazing. And as I started throwing it in the chat, going, have you seen this thing? Freaking awesome. So you guys have all had a good amount of time, hopefully, to view some content on it, and there's been some like IGN's got some like hands-on videos and stuff like that, which are very cool and interesting to see. So what this is it's a handheld device that's more capable than Xbox One and PS4, and it has all the other Zen 2 architecture stuff in it, and whiz-bangery RDNA 2 and all that kind of stuff in it that we all assumed would be for the Switch Pro, whatever that one is going to be called, if it even exists, which it probably does. Anyway, so look, we all know we're going to just throw a whole bunch of emulators on this. We're going to wipe the Steam OS off it. We're going to put Windows on there. We're going to put Game Pass. We're going to put Nintendo and PS2 and GameCube, Dolphin emulators and shit on it. That's what my intention is if I ever pick one up. So Steam, Valve, you've literally just changed the game for a lot of people here. The only thing that this thing won't do is play the Nintendo IPs. It's just taken a bit of a wind out of Nintendo sales as far as I'm concerned. So, look, before we get into like specs and pricing or whatever else, I want your initial thoughts. Jamie, I'll start with you because you made a good comment on how this speaks to you and your current situation. Like, what are your feelings? Please describe them.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want one based on the fact that it marries that PC game inside and lets me use it from like the comfort of a couch. Like you have, I literally can't escape to play at my setup at the minute. Like, and even if there's a console like downstairs, I take the PlayStation or the Xbox down to the lounge, and it's like that. You know, that TV is busy, either with kids shows or my wife's watching something, and it's just like when your hands are so full, you can't just pick something up and play it, which this allows for. Which obviously the Switch is great for. But the Switch only really has the Nintendo library. It won't let me just, hop into Destiny and just mindlessly grind with a pair of headphones in or something like that. Don't get me wrong, I can do that via Game Pass and cloud stream it or stream from my console, but Chunt, I think you agree with me. First person shooters and cloud streaming are just not there yet. There is way too much discernible input lag that you can't play it. It makes me very, very nauseous. You hit the analog stick and there is literally like a second delay between it and you moving, and it's just, you can't do it. Great for everything else, but you can't do it. The idea of being able to, like load up Uplay and install Assassin's Creed and do that kind of stuff all on the go as well. It's great. There's some things that really do worry me. I watched the smaller tidbit interview with Gabe Newell. I know that IGN are putting that full interview out at some point next week, I think they mentioned. But there's a few things there that he mentioned that I was like, yeah, maybe not. They say, about the battery life. Very much like the Switch, it depends what you're playing. If you're playing Breath of the Wild, you're going to get 4 hours. If you're just playing like Tetris or something, you'll get like 8 or 9 hours. Do you know what I mean? Like it fully depends on how hard you're taxing the CPU. And given that it's an RDNA 2 chip, it has got the ability to ramp up. Like quite like you said, it's very similar to what's in the PS4 and Xbox at a power level, just with a different tool set from the more modern consoles. So I'm on the fence. The controller looks awkward. I don't like the position. Like, why do people insist on symmetrical sticks, especially on handheld devices? Because you literally, the Wii U gamepad had that as well, didn't it? Where they were, and it was so uncomfortable to hold. I get it on like a PlayStation controller. I don't mind on the DualSense. I prefer asymmetric style, but it just, there's a few things that doesn't add up. They seem very keen on promoting to other hardware manufacturers as well that look, the OS that we've built for this is open source and it's available for anybody who wants to build hardware for Steam OS, much like they did with was it the Steam, what did they call it, Steam Box, or the consoles from way back. So when we got like the PS4 and Xbox One, they released like a Steam mini PC that was supposed to be a console hybrid type thing. And Alienware and Asus and Toshiba and loads of other brands were all building.
Yeah.
And they just never went anywhere. But I could see, if you look at the concept from Alienware from last year, Alienware had that kind of prototype handheld, which had a bit of a bigger display. I think it was 8.5-inch display, and it's like
beefy boy,
full Alienware RGB. It had a 1440p screen, and it's just like, this is the tits. But there's two things they can't do with that. They can't manufacture it properly for mass consumption, and they would, even if they could, they can't keep the price down. Like Gabe Newell said, they're eating. But the price point was tough to swallow for them internally, but it's got to be done to make it accessible. So the fact that they're turning around and going, yeah, we're basically giving you like a $600 PC along with a screen and controllers for, is it $400 American? So yeah. Long-term viability, I'm really unsure on.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. That's a good point. I didn't consider the battery life aspect on that, but I mean, there are 3 models. I don't know if they're going to have different varying battery sizes and whatnot, but
the batteries, etc., don't change. The only thing that changes with the models is the internal storage.
Yeah, internal storage. Yeah.
I believe the base model's flash storage, which nobody wants.
64 gigabytes.
The second model up. Yeah, then you move to an NVMe.
Yeah, 65.
And then
256. Yeah.
Yeah, the big boy that's the 512 has a high-speed NVMe and has a different screen.
Yeah,
it has a different type of glass tempering
Yeah,
for the screen, which I'm
premium
assuming is going to reduce
anti-glare, etched
Yeah, it's just got
glass.
anti-glare on it.
Yeah.
I mean,
But when
is
you
it
go
an OLED?
outside,
Nope, it's an.
Yeah. I don't know if it doesn't say if it's OLED here on the thing, but
It's
you
not
do get an
OLED. It's just an
exclusive.
LCD.
Not? Oh, okay, right.
Just an LCD. Although at that size, I mean, it's the reason that I'm not jumping to pre-order. I mean, I've literally got Amazon's pre-order page for the Switch OLED just to see if they'd sold out instantly when they went up for pre-order.
Yeah,
Still pre-order both of them, which to me tells you that there is not demand. If that was the PlayStation 5 or the Series X,
be gone.
like they were gone like in a finger snap. Like it's like ridiculous. Those have been up since midnight. So that was 11 and a half hours ago, and you can still pre-order one. So that to me tells you all you need to know about the Switch Pro pre-orders. Switch Pro, sorry. SWOLED. It's not the Switch Pro.
SWOLED, yes. Neat.
SWOLED. And I think it's hilarious if you search on Amazon for Steam Deck, because obviously pre-orders are not up yet. You just get Elgato Stream Decks. I've seen a few memes saying like, thanks for the Steam Deck, and it's people that have got like an Elgato Stream Deck, and then they put Switch controllers either side of it. Like, there's some memes going around which are quite funny.
Nice.
I don't know if it'll take off like they want it to. Like, I don't think they know if it's going to. You know, when they were interviewing the developers, I don't know if you watched all the content that IGN put out on it, but when they were interviewing the developers, it was very much, we think this is what people want.
Yeah.
We'll learn soon enough. Like, we'll either ship millions of these, and you know, we'll iterate on it, we'll make new versions, or it's not to be. And it's like, that's quite a decent mindset for hardware developers to have. It's like, this is what the market is indicating is missing. Here is our best attempt at it for a first go. Buy it and show us you like it, and we'll invest more R&D. We'll make it better, and you know, we've got a new product family. Or you just won't, and it'll go the way of Steam Link and all the other random shit that Valve have produced over the last decade, and we'll never hear anything about it again. The industry seems to be shifting to cloud for handheld gaming. Like, it seems to be, even Nintendo are like now doing cloud stuff on handhelds. So I think there's a market there. I do not think it's going to see mass adoption. There's enough there to worry me that I probably wouldn't go in until the price comes.
It's a beefy
down
gamble.
Catastrophically.
Like,
it is a beefy gamble, and it's not. I mean, for 400, like, take away a GPU, you can build a PC for not much more than that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, just the core components, less a graphics card, because that's the thing that costs everybody chunky money, and even more so in the scalper market that we're currently in. So it doesn't make much sense.
Yes. So, like, I have some additional thoughts in here, but Dan, I know, like, I don't know if this is in your wheelhouse or if this interests you at all, but you saw this. Does it make you excited to, you know, Steam? You get your PlayStation games through Steam. You know, you could have your PlayStation handheld console, you know, the Vita 2 pseudo level thing. How do you feel about that?
I think you get 4 PlayStation games through Steam at the moment, so it's not a huge library if you're looking to get up there. But
more to come.
When I saw this, I was like, Jamie would just probably want to build this thing rather than buy it. Like, that's what I initially thought. But now my first thought, because every time news like this comes out, your first thought is always like, how does it affect me? Like, what do I want? And to me, it was, okay, here's PC gaming and not mobile gaming, but being able to take your gaming on the move. And I'm like, these are two things I do not care about or take no like I just don't partake in any of those two things. And you can call me out on Age of Empires, I understand, but if Age of Empires was on the PlayStation console, I would just be playing it there, even though it'd be a shitter experience, because I just would prefer it. But on an industry side of things, the difference between this and what I think they were trying to do with the Steam machines back then is, I think in the Steam machines back then, there was like 8 different people actually making the machines, and it wasn't Valve themselves, whereas this is them actually putting their money towards it. And what we've learnt in the gaming sector, anyone that tries to half-ass either making games or doing hardware always tend to fail. You have more of a chance to succeed if you are putting in your own R&D into the products that you're trying to sell. So I think that's one good thing for it. I find it very curious as the announcement came up now, just after Switch announced their thing last week. I wonder if they were kind of waiting to see what Nintendo were going to show before they pulled this out. And I think it's also good for... I don't actually think it's just good for the industry as a whole. I think it's always better to have competition, and especially when Sony stopped making portables because they just weren't selling enough, and they've gone into the VR space and they're competing there. Nintendo kind of just had free reign to just keep going, and not necessarily that this has to sell as many Nintendos, but to have the option out there for people to be like, well, you know, I want to play games on the move, but maybe it's not Nintendo games I want to be playing. Like, I want to play Fallen Order wherever I go. Now, mind you, you're probably going to be able to play it for 2 hours, and then your thing will die. But it's another option, and I think that's better for people to just have options, and the market will sort itself out. I don't know how many of these different SKUs they're going to sell, but they'll learn very quickly, and then they'll most likely get rid of the middle version and just keep the small version and the big version. They're eating on the price, and that's something that Nintendo don't ever really have to do because of the limited power they put into their machines, and they focus more on the games, which is also right because Valve doesn't really make any games much these days. I think they've made one game in the last 10 years. So I think it's really good for the industry. Absolutely means nothing to me. I don't think it affects me in any way, shape, or form. But I think it's good to just have it there as an option, and I'm glad that they're putting their money behind it more than what they did with the Steam Link or the Steam machine.
100%. Yeah, I agree with all of that. I mean, besides the I want it, I actually do want one. I think this is going to be more successful than I see a lot of people making comments on it. This puts Nintendo on notice, man. Like, Nintendo aren't short of money, but they're always putting old hardware in their stuff, like weaker hardware, so they're not losing much on top. You know, everybody, like, Nintendo fans can say whatever they like, but I guarantee you, if they came out with a hardware like this that actually had power behind it, they'd be like, hell yeah, that's great. You know, we get to see more of Mario's mustache in, like, you know, HD, and we can see every strand of hair, you know, that kind of shit. Rather than just you've got this anemic hardware that's kind of just running games. Like, I played Broforce on my Switch Lite, and Broforce, for those who don't know, it's like a 2D platformer shooter thing. Not really taxing at all, but it was getting slow down, you know, when shit was going nuts in that game. It's not a graphically intensive thing at all. And I remember thinking, okay, that's interesting. Even though it can run like Breath of the Wild, and even that had slowdown everywhere now and then, depending on what you're doing. But I would love Nintendo just once to be putting something out that's on par, at least with what the specs are here. Like, if this is what they might come back with the Switch Pro, whatever that's going to be called, or the Net Switch 2, whatever they end up doing, I think that'll change everything again. But I love this. This is great competition, and I think, like Dan said, Nintendo's had free reign of that space for way too long, and there have been people that have tried to compete with this kind of model, but I think Valve are the ones that can do it because they have a shitload of money. They have the money to lose on this. You know, they can do something if they really wanted to push it. I do hope this has the uptake. I do hope people jump on board with this, and I think there's room for it. If Sony aren't going to do it, Microsoft sure as shit aren't going to do it, even though I would buy one. Like, if Xbox turn around and goes, yeah, let's do that. They make it a mini fridge, for fuck's sake, you know, of the Series X. If they're going to do that, why? You know, I know there's significantly margin of cost there, but man, I would buy one. Yeah, I think I'd love to see more handheld stuff come out from all the parties, man. I think there's room for it, but I think Microsoft will just stick to their cloud stuff, which is fine. Like, it works depending on the game you're playing, remote play. is actually been significantly improved in my recent PlayStations with that. So yeah, take it or leave it. But anyway, I just think this is probably the biggest news of the week, I think, and particularly today. It just so happened. I've been looking for stuff to talk about most of the week because I'm like, it's my turn this week. What are we going to talk about? And then this dropped. I'm like, fuck yeah, man, this is big. So look,
what do you guys think is the actual goal that Valve want to get out with this? Like, is it for more people to use Steam? Because we haven't touched upon it.
Yeah.
Well, Jamie touched upon it a little bit about how if you want to, it's open source and you can load other things into the OS. But like, what is their goal with it? Because clearly they're taking a loss on the hardware. And it's also interesting the fact that, you know, depending on the space you're in, so like when Epic came along and were giving more money to the developers, suddenly like Valve was the bad guy, and then Valve comes into the portable space and suddenly they're the underdog to Nintendo. And so it's like, oh, Valve, they're coming up.
Yeah. Well, I don't think everybody's going to be capable of wanting to modify it. Like people have been talking, and what they've even said, like you can wipe SteamOS off it and put Windows on it and do whatever you want, like it's a PC. But there are going to be plenty of people out there that can't be asked with that or don't want to risk it, and will just stay within that Steam ecosystem. You know, they're relying on their Steam base. Like there's people out there with thousands of games in their Steam library, and you buy this console and you essentially have thousands of games built into it. Technically, you know.
But is that making them more money?
Well, you'd be more inclined to play more games or buy more games. You know. That's my thought of it anyway.
Or are they just going to play the games they already have just on the go now?
Well, there's going to be some games, like little games that you just don't want to sit at your computer for. Like, for argument's sake, I don't know, Genshin Impact on PC or something. You know, if you could play that through Steam, I don't even know if it is, but I'm just using that example. A game like that, if you could just sit there and grind on it, like in the couch, you know, you're away from your computer, shit like that. Or like, you know, your little RPGs, you don't have to be stuck at your PC monitor for. There's lots of games. Like even I've got stuff on my Xbox library I haven't touched yet because I don't feel like playing them on a big screen. It's weird. Then I'll whip them out when I've got my Kishi going, you know, through my phone. I'll play them then. It's weird, I know, but some games lend better to different situations. But like I don't know, Jamie, you've kind of weave between most of these worlds all the time, depending on the location of your situation. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, who's this market for?
The thing I struggle to know. They're clearly aiming it at PC gamers, but I mean, if they've already got better hardware, so exactly as Dan's saying, what is it? They're just going to take their library on the go now and have a worse experience. That's the thing. I think it doesn't quite. if it was the Nintendo market they were going after, I could see that as being fairly sensible. But do they need it? If you've already got a Switch, do you need this? Like, it depends where you're looking and what you want to go for. I don't see a direct market, is my answer to your question. I don't see a very nichely carved out bunch of people that are going to go, I absolutely need that. Which is why I think it will go the way of some of their other hardware. I don't see it.
It does sound like the dad deck or the parent deck. Like the amount of things I've seen on Twitter, which is parents, which is I want to get in some gaming time, but I can't just sit in front of the TV the entire time. So to have something nearby, which is what people do the Switch with, but not the Switch can't play every game. So that's what it sounds like. But that's a very expensive purchase for families who have kids and need accessible income to get something of this price.
Very luxury item, yes, but it's a very sexy luxury item that Uncle Trump wants. Yes, he will put Game Pass on that motherfucker.
Also, appreciate that it's the Xbox like face buttons and it's the PlayStation like R1, R2 trick.
Really? I did not notice.
Yeah, they've got the Xbox face buttons like the XY,
So
B,
they do.
and then it's R1, R2, L1, L2 on the buttons.
Isn't that lovely?
Triggers. I thought, that's appealing to everybody.
Man, imagine playing all the dating simulators on Steam on this thing, man. You know, There's some pretty foul and vulgar dating simulators on that thing. Yeah,
Yeah, but you need 2 hands.
Oh yeah. Oh well. True.
You don't need them anymore. You don't need them anymore.
Wait, there is a
true, yeah,
touchpad, so who knows what the touchpad's going to do?
Oh man, yes, rub your dick on that. Anyway, so yes, let's end that. That's a good place to end. I took it too far as usual. So yes, thanks for joining me, boys. It's always a good time. It's glad to have the trio back for a second week. Fantastic, and thanks for everybody sticking around this long to the end. And we'll join in for next week's episode, which will be episode 741, and we'll take it from there. And I think it goes back to Dan. It's your turn next week, isn't it?
I'm sure there'll be some PlayStation news next week.
Always is. It always works out pretty well. Yes. Cool. Righto, boys. Take it easy. Have fun. And do things. I don't know.
Hi,
I don't have a
everybody.
sign-off. Help me, Jamie. Help.
Yeah. Just be human.
Thought you died for a second.